you a little bit about how we came up to the idea of sponsoring the things that you see in this package. Also, there's a list of all the items in the package at the back, and if you don't mind, if you would just sign in, and if you live in my district, if you will just kind of let us know if you live in Councilor Americas, because we do a newsletter that we send out each month to let you know happenings in our city. So thank you all for being here. I know it's a Wednesday night and church night for a lot of people, but we were trying to fit it in to make sure everyone got their questions answered. This package has been going on for 2.5 years, and the City Council has had numerous meetings, and I think several of you have been to those meetings, where we could listen to see what you wanted. When you look at this package, and I talk to people every day, well, I like a portion of this package, but I don't like everything in the package. Well, that's the same way with councilors, but you have to come up with a decision on what's best for the entire city. You know, if it was me, I would want everything for my district as Councilor America or any of the other councilors would want in their district. So with this, we started out with public safety. And I was looking for Councilor Gilbert, but I think she's having a I'm Running Again party tonight, so she was not able to make it. But with that, we hope to get 164 police officers. We hope to get more firefighters. People, and I even hate to say this in a meeting, but we are so short of police officers right now that they're having to work overtime, and they're not, you know, all happy about that. Some is mandatory overtime because they have to get out and we have to protect our city. And as policemen retire, with our budget, the city of Tulsa is ran off of sales tax dollars only a little bitty small portion from other sources do we get any funding. And this year with the internet sales and all, we continue to drop at holidays. Most people don't realize on their tax slip that it says, do you owe any surtax? Well, that's when you've purchased something on the internet, and I've had my taxes done for years. And Colin's here from, I hate to be waving, but I was going to have him from Turkey Mountain. He's going to come up here and speak, so I was going to have him have a seat up here. But my tax people have never asked me what I bought on the internet. Of course, I don't buy anything because I'm not that good on the internet, and unfortunately, I don't have the bill to just be able to buy anything. I have to try everything on, but we continue to lose sales tax. So that's very important for our public safety to be able to maintain our police and fire. And also, I've had a lot of questions about 911. This will also put 911 operators' positions open so we can stack our 911 operators so they will not put you on hold for a long period of time. But I think public safety is important to everyone. Sidewalks around schools are very important. I'm meeting with them for people in my district just to see how they came up with the calculations of what sidewalks need to go where around our schools if this vision passes. But if you have an area that has sidewalks and it's by a school, please let us know if there's been any kind of accidents or near fatalities or anything that you're concerned about that's around schools. Let us know, and I'm addressing that with TPS now to see their guidelines of where those sidewalks are needed. And we've had a fatality in Southwest Tulsa. North Tulsa's had several fatalities, but something very important to me is to keep our kids safe. But with that, I'll let Councilor America come up and say a few things about our vision package, and then we'll take some questions.
I always like to give just a little background, and I apologize I know a lot of you have heard this probably 10 times now, because I know there's a lot of familiar faces here who've been to a lot of these meetings. But just as a kind of reminder to all of us, what we're doing on April 5th, when you're going to be voting, This will be an extension, and most of you here probably participated, I hope voted, when we did the original Vision 2025 package. That was a countywide package, and it paid for a whole lot of pretty cool things around Tulsa, including the VOK, the Jenks Aquarium, lots of neighborhood improvements, a lot of higher ed improvements, things all over the city that, yeah, I am one of those people who, you can say, I don't need the mic, and it's actually kind of true, and most people say that, and it's not true. Anyway, when we originally did that, is it still, I can still hear it echoing. You just want me to turn it off? Talk louder?
You could probably talk loud.
Yeah, I can do that. That's my mom's soccer field PTA president voice. Anyway, that original package, yeah, if you want to figure it out, you can send me back there. That's expired, 0.6 countywide sales tax. And this time around, we're going to be doing, we've done it a little bit differently. Each of the cities in the county are doing their own 0.55 piece of that, and the county is doing a 0.05 piece of that. So when you go to the polls, if you guys are all Tulsa residents, when you go to the polls April 5th, you're going to see 4 questions. 3 of them are City of Tulsa, 1 is Tulsa County, and if all 4 of those are approved, your tax is going to stay just the same, no tax increase. And as Councilor Q mentioned, and hopefully you all picked up one of these, and this shows you the 3 pieces that we're going to have in the Tulsa package. That first one is the public safety tax. That will be a permanent tax. Again, it's an extension of existing tax, so it's not going to raise your taxes. But we wanted to make sure we didn't get in a situation where we went out and hired 160 police officers and 65 firefighters and 16 911 operators. And then if we had some shift and it didn't get approved right away, all of a sudden we had to turn around and fire those people. And I do want to emphasize those will be in addition, and that's something we've worked real hard on to make sure that we don't just hire people over here and then fire people over here or not, or not replace them. These will be additional officers. We did a big third party came in, did a comprehensive public safety analysis this past year, and it confirmed what you guys probably know, what you've seen in your own neighborhoods, what we were told by neighborhoods, what we were told by the police officers themselves, but we're dramatically short, understaffed in police officers. And as Councilor Q said, that's meant we can't keep we can't keep our police stations open. They run like banker hours, except not even banker hours now are extended. So if you need a safe place to go, people can't go to police stations and get access. So that's one of the things. It's going to add traffic. That's a big issue in my neck of the woods. I'm in southeast Tulsa, but probably in this part of town as well. It's going to add what we used to call, and they may call it something a little bit different, but street crimes units that will be able to go in and tackle problems in each part of town. You may have a rash of break-ins in your neighborhoods, and right now there is no way that's going to make it up the priority list for the police department. But when we get the street crimes unit, they'll be able to move around and do things. So I think those are going to be some things that you'll really see an impact, and we'll see it all over the city. The second piece on here is the permanent sales tax for transportation. And that has 2 big pieces. One of that is transit, and it's going to be really enhance our transit system. And the system-wide is going to expand hours and the days that service runs. So if you use a bus anytime now, you'll know that they don't run very often and they don't run that many hours a day. So that's going to be a big help. It's also going to expand the Peoria route, which some of you may use, and eventually go far north up, I think, to 81st. And an 11th Street route. So there's going to be 2 big improvements. And then the other piece of that's going to benefit the entire city is, I know it's one of the things that we both hear a ton of complaints about, but potholes and street problems. We've got 1 crew now. We are so understaffed in that part of the city. 1 crew that does pothole repair citywide. And it shows. And so we're going to be greatly increasing that staff on a permanent basis to be able to do street repairs, striping on streets. You'll see how those are faded out, so you can't even tell sometimes what lane you're in. And signalization and all of those kinds of things, which is a huge need and a huge problem for us. So in addition to just making that better on a day-to-day basis, the other thing that's going to be really great about that is it won't just be triage repairs, so they're going to be able to get in there and do that work The streets are going to be kept in better condition, so they're going to deteriorate more slowly. So you'll see both the short-term impact there and a long-term impact because the streets are in better condition. And then the third piece, and the one you probably heard the most about, and it's the biggest list here. It has the most, it has some fun things in it, but it has a lot of things that will have a lot of impact, is economic development. And that's that big list here. I know some of you were talking earlier, and Councilor Q may want to talk a little bit more. Do you know, talk about river? Okay, talk about. So one that's gotten the most attention on there is the river. That's going to be the 2-lake proposal, a dam, 2 dams on Arkansas River. And you guys have probably all been to meetings or heard a lot about that, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. There's a mix of things. If you look through this list, and the way I look at it, I mean, there's a couple of different things on here that there's a lot I'm excited about. But we looked at economic development in multiple ways. There's a number of things on here that are pretty focused on bringing people to Tulsa to spend their money, to give us their money and spend it here. So things like the convention center, the soccer fields, the BMX headquarters. Those may not be things that you or I will go down and use on a regular basis, but what those will do is bring tens of thousands of people to Tulsa, and they do right now, or the things that we're adding. So some of these we're having to do necessary maintenance or expansion, some of them are new, but those are things right now that mean tens of millions of dollars to Tulsa when those people come here. And I like to mention the soccer fields because it's about as far away as my district, Southeast Tulsa, and I talk about this in my neighborhood meetings, but you know, most of you here have probably not been to the Mohawk soccer fields unless you're a soccer mom like I am. So I've been there with my kids, but most of us haven't. And the reason we built those, you guys paid for it. And the reason you did is because we can do things like this last summer. For the first time ever, Tulsa was able to host the U.S. National Youth Championship. So we had 10,000 people come to Tulsa and spend a week here. And estimated impact of $6 to $7 million just from one event. So those are the kind of things, that's why we have those types of events here. Come here and you know, get that money into our system. Some of the items on here are focused more on jobs. The improvements out at the airport, the Peoria Mohawk Business Park, which will create a sort of shovel-ready industrial park in North Tulsa. It's a huge need for Tulsa. We've lost out on a couple of big developments that have come to town because there was no site in Tulsa. We got plenty of land, but nothing ready for that kind of industrial development that didn't take a whole lot of prep work, so people went to Owasso or other places. And then some of the things on here are just, it may not be as obvious at first why they're an economic development package, but they're things that we know have a real impact. Councilor Q mentioned the schools. That's one of the pieces I'm real excited about. There's 2 pieces on here where we, for the first time ever, collaborated and partnered with the public schools and went to them and said, how can we help you be successful? Because we really understand that the city and the schools, one of us can't be successful without the other. And so the Safety First initiative on here, that will go and improve safe access to schools in every school in the city limits, every public school. So the Jenks schools, the Tulsa schools, and the Union schools that are within the city limits. And we basically went to every school and figured out, so some of them will be crosswalks, some will be lights, some will be, you know, signage, depends what each school has. We've had 14, just in the last couple of years, 14 kids have been either killed or injured, you know, been hit by a car, getting to and from school. So it's a huge issue for Tulsa, and you guys probably know that in your neighborhoods. There's another partnership with Tulsa Union and Jenks schools where we're going to help them provide some incentives. They've lost so many teachers, there's a real teacher shortage. So anybody in here who wants a job teaching can probably get it right now because they're having to emergency certify people and put them in the classroom because we just can't get enough teachers here. So this piece will help us attract and retain teachers here in Tulsa. And I think it's the first program like that in the state. I think it's going to be really innovative, and it's going to give Tulsa schools a tool that other schools in the state don't have, and hopefully allow them to be a little bit more competitive and give all of our kids a boost. So I'll mention a few more things about the river, and then I know one thing that a lot of people in this neck of the woods are excited about, speaking of woods, Turkey Mountain, which is one of the coolest things on the list, and we've got some fans here tonight who can talk a little bit about that, and I saw Matt Meyer from River Parks come in as well. Just a couple of key things I wanted to mention on the river, because it comes up
every meeting I've been in, a couple of questions that people have, because it's not real clear on this list. But I want to make sure that everybody understands we're talking 2 dams, and one is the zinc dam and the repairs on the zinc dam and some enhancements, and you can see that listed here. On the South Tulsa Dam, the South Tulsa Jenks Dam, that is a 3-way partnership. It'll be the city of Tulsa, the Muskogee Creek Nation, which has the casino there, River Spirit, and the city of Jenks. And all three, since all 3 of those parties will benefit from that dam, that lake that is built, they will all 3 share in the cost. You don't see that on here because this is our ballot, but this city of Jenks will have about 16 million on their ballot April 5th. And then once it comes through this, both the cities vote, then the Creek Nation will come back and their council will vote on adding their funding to the mix. And if any one of those partners doesn't participate, we won't build it. So if Creeks decide that they don't want to be part of it this time around, or Jenks decides they're not, we're not going to be on the hook in Tulsa. We've all agreed that we're all in or none of us are in. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And again, we couldn't show it on this list because of the way it works, but the ordinance that goes with this will make very clear there will be a operating and maintenance endowment. One of the things that we found going through this process is we do a really bad job. We do a pretty good job of building things. We don't do a great job of maintaining and repairing and replacing them. And that's one of the problems with the zinc dam. So this will include an endowment fund that will, either if it's 1 dam or 2, but to make sure that there is a permanent source of money to maintain, operate, do repairs when necessary, and that, and the like. I want to add one quick thing here that I think sometimes gets overlooked. Those of you who've been to some of these meetings might have seen we got heated at times over the discussion. I mean, we had a lot of proposals in front of us, and there was a lot of debate. I don't think you can understate how impressive it is really, and how amazing it is that you got all 9 city councilors, the mayor of Tulsa, all 3 county commissioners, really all the outlying cities to agree on this. And that's not an easy thing to do. And it's not a fake, I'll support your bad idea if you support my bad idea kind of agreement. I mean, we tussle over these things, but I think we came to something that every one of those people really feels like gives us a balanced approach. There's things in every part of the city, geographically will benefit. There's, we touch on education and health and jobs and, all of these different pieces in the city. So I think it's something that we all feel really, really good about. And like if you saw some of our meetings along the way, it's hard to think that we actually got here, but I think it says a lot about the process and about the participation that you guys did that we were able to get here. So we're going to be, do you want to have a call in next, and then we'll be having
this. When we looked at this, and you look over everything here, we've got some questions in North Tulsa, some other areas. Why didn't you fund our project? Everything on here has sustainability. That was very important to us. Most of the things on here are city-owned, or they're owned by an entity that has a history that shows that they can maintain what money we give them. Because that was very important to us. And we had $2 or $3 billion worth of ask when we had people come out to meetings. And we had to narrow this down. And one of the main points, when you look at something, you want to know that your money is going to a group that will maintain what money is spent. And to me, that was one of the important things about the part of the vision that includes the river, the Gilcrease Museum, the Cox Center, all owned by the city of Tulsa. When you look at airports, we own that. We own American Airlines. We own Spirit Air. We own the bus company. Well, we own the buildings. We don't own the company. But if you're a landlord and you rent property out, you've got to maintain the roofs. You've got to maintain the properties. So we haven't done that for years. And American Airlines is such a big employee here, and people that work there make good money. So we need to make sure American stays. And right now, there's a problem. They have some bigger aircraft coming in. We have to have temporary hangars for that. So when you look at anything on here, everything has
a history for sustainability. Something new that Councilor America and I have talked about, and I'd like to mention this for my district, but I think it really, when she started pointing out things, I think it affected her district. Crystal City on historic Route 66, when the owners bought that, they spent millions of dollars just on the air conditioning, the roofing, trying to do a little facade in the front, and we were not able to help them in any kind of way. I did find out, and thanks to INCOG, who helped fight this battle for me, we made that what they call a low lot area. So with that, we could get federal grants, and we were able to do a $750,000 loan that they have to return, but a loan to get a grocery store in a food district. So with that, she has put in reinvestment in our community. You look all over our city, we have these big grocery stores, mostly, she's lucky enough to once had grocery stores. I personally don't have any.
You got new ones, come on.
Yeah, and so we want to make sure we continue to build, but what's happening to these blighted shopping malls? What's happening to these areas that no one's looking at again? And so we need to help them. And another one, a big one in her area is Fontana. I don't think it's ever been rented, and I've lived in Tulsa all my life, forever. And maybe there's some ideas that it could be a senior citizen comp, and I'm throwing this out because we had not talked to the owner, but there's some ideas out there that maybe we could get him a low interest or no interest revolving loan to help him make some of those things happen. And just work with the different communities. And I'm saying North Tulsa has another, the McLean Shopping Center. It was sold the same time as Crystal City, and they weren't as fortunate to have someone that has invested the money. But we need to help figure out a way that, do we want to just keep building, or how can we revitalize these office spaces and shopping malls that we have? And then there's the beautification loan, or beautification grant. Your neighborhood can apply for that. And if your frontage needs some improvement, and we're going to make that a lot simpler than it was before. Because I've heard people say it was a 5-page application to fill out the beautification grant. And then people love Route 66, since Tulsa is the home of Route 66. So we have put some money aside for that to help revitalize, maybe plants, striping, stuff to really promote. Because there's people from all over the world that have come to Tulsa to see Route 66. And we want them to stay, spend the night, go to the Gilcrease Museum, go to the different venues we have throughout our city. So as you look at this, you might think, well, that's not something that's important to me. When I first heard about BMX and I went to a meeting, I said, I'm sorry, that is just a ridiculous thing. I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to support something at the fairgrounds. Well, I met with them. They actually had a good plan. They agreed to move to Tulsa from Tucson because they had their big BMX event here. And they promised the fairgrounds right now, the health department building's idle. The old Riller Stadium is empty. And with this money, that will help renovate that. And they have shown us paperwork of their history that in 5 years we'll have the money back just in people coming to our city to do these events. So everything, it took a long time to go over this list to make sure that we knew this would be something that would bring money into our city, or something that would benefit and enhance the quality of life. And I know that there's people in the room maybe that are concerned about the river, and before calling this to talk, I want to say we're going to have a lake in there. If we get both dams on each side, it'll go from 101st to 71st, that's 10 foot deep. You can have sailboats in there, you can swim, and anyone that was in the great raft race of the past, or was in this one recently, I was fortunate enough to be on the Channel Lake boat, and people, the only thing that came out of that, there were people swimming. People at Channel Lake got out and swam most of the trip. I didn't get out because I couldn't get back in. But half of the people, none of them got sick. People always worried. We have done numerous studies. the Arkansas River, if you actually pull up the water, it's clean, and it's actually cleaner than Grand Lake, where people swim all the time. So we want to make it safe. We don't want people to die anymore when they're jumping in there at Cedar Dam. We want to build these dams to make it a safe place. But you can have sailboats, and there's a lot of people that are my age in this room that, you know, I probably would never get in a sailboat out on the, I would get in a raft, and I plan on doing it next year, but.
How old are you?
29.
Okay.
Like all of us. These, we also have to look to the future.
Wearing a big boot.
Yeah. We have to bring these things in that young people want. To bring our children back home.
Like Turkey Mountain?
Yes, like Turkey Mountain. Like Paul and Steve on, that's what you. Yes, I'll turn it over. You can tell me how to do that.
I'm the Vice President of the Tulsa Urban Wilderness Coalition. This is a little bit surreal to be up here talking about Turkey Mountain Night because it was a year ago. I sat in the back of this room. I was allowed to ask one question of the developers of Simon. And I think I recognize a few faces here. I know Simon leaving probably wasn't popular with some people. For the overall good of the city, though, ultimately what has happened, we have stumbled onto an incredibly rare opportunity that is not happening around the country these days. Tulsa has acres and acres of space that can be redeveloped. Instead of going in and clear cutting and taking away recreational space, which other cities are doing, we're doing the exact opposite. We're setting a trend. Tulsa has world-class river trails. We have an amazing system, partly because of the generosity of the George Kaiser Family Foundation, also due to the very good fundraising efforts of our River Parks Authority, which has done a very good job of being a steward of these assets. These are the types of things that young people, middle-aged people, older people, they all look at as the overall quality of life, where they're at. Turkey Mountain represents one of those things. One of the things we learned over the last year, we did a user survey. Turkey Mountain brings people in from the suburbs. Events here brings people in from out of town. With all the controversy with the mall, it got so much attention that now it's become really even more of a regional sensation. In fact, we're kind of lamenting now that maybe we've become a victim of our own success because on Saturday or Sunday after about 10 a.m., you cannot find a place to park. Down in the lower parking lot, they reopened the upper parking lot last year that had been there forever. They finally reopened that. There's still cars parked off in the neighborhood to the side. It is amazing what this is doing. But what happens when people come to Turkey Mountain? This is a part of visionary economic development that we need to think twice about. How do we really develop? Do we do it by putting in more sales tax collection points, or you give people a reason to come to Tulsa and then they stop and they shop? We've got all kinds of great shopping and eateries within a 2-mile radius of Turkey Mountain where people are stopping at either before or after. When people come here for mountain biking events, we may have 200, 300 competitors who come in. They stay all weekend. They get hotel rooms. They will stop at the bike shop down the street if they broke the wheel or they need a tire or something else. People spend money here for these events. This is where we get growth. Tulsa's growth has been relatively flat for the last 30 years. If we keep expanding retail, and guess what? We're still having the same issues with budgets. So by investing in economic development issues like Turkey Mountain and Gilcrease and giving people a reason to want to come to Tulsa and see what's going on here, we're actually giving the sales tax base an opportunity to grow by importing sales tax money. We already know the realities of the city is facing an online world, so that's hard to recoup sales tax dollars lost to online giants like Amazon. But when we bring people here, we invest money in our river parks, we invest money in the river, we invest money in Turkey Mountain, Gilcrease. People want to have conventions here. People want to come in and see what we're doing. Let me give you a really good example my wife and I stumbled onto about a year and a half ago. We were invited to go to Bentonville, Arkansas for a day with a regional director of the International Mountain Biking Association. Took our mountain bikes, went and rode the trails. They have world-class trails over there. They also have the Crystal Bridges Museum right in the middle of this. And I think Crystal Bridges is bringing in like 1 million people a year or something along these lines. That's what the proposal for Gilcrease is in the package. They're trying to emulate basically what they've been able to do there. That includes trail expansion. These are things people will travel from the region. They will stay overnight. They will spend money. They'll come to events here. Now, there may be parts of the package that don't appeal to you, but when you live in a community, there's going to be a little bit of give and take. There's going to be sometimes we're paying for things that maybe we don't use ourselves. I don't have children that are still school age, so yet I still pay for Tulsa Public Schools. I live in the city of Tulsa. I pay my property taxes. I still pay for that. That's part of living in a community. The same thing with, there may be parts of the package that, well, maybe you might not utilize, but other people will. Maybe your children will, maybe your grandchildren will. It's my hope my kids decide to stay here in the Tulsa area, and I know the kind of amenities and assets that we have, and we're proposing are the things that they like, and will help attract people just like them. Get other kids to stay here after they graduate from college. Come back to Tulsa instead of going away to Denver, or going away to Austin, or someplace like that. Turkey Mountain is one of these really unique places like this that Austin doesn't have. It's New York City, well, they've got Central Park, and Central Park is largely groomed. This is really a unique opportunity. When we did our presentation to the City Council last summer for Enhanced Provision 2025, Councilor Ewing mentioned that we actually hit every objective they were looking at. They wanted to see economic development. They wanted to be able to see educational opportunities. They wanted to be able to see improvement in health outcomes. By getting people out into nature, giving them a place to hike and experience nature that's not only good for your physical health, but your overall mental well-being. It's a place to get out, wander around, as we like to say, get lost without actually getting lost. It's one of those fantastic recreational opportunities that we have. There are, of course, some goals in the package that we're looking at down the road. Obviously, one of the things is to acquire land permanently to be able to expand the footprint of Turkey Mountain from what it currently is. The other part is some improvements for trail access. Certainly, there's a goal down the line that the TUWC plans to be around to help raise funds for improvements down the line for maybe additional parking, better trailhead access, even with hopes of being able to have some areas that people with handicaps or disabilities will be able to utilize as well. It's just not all this really rugged environment. So there's a lot of good to be gained by what has happened here with Turkey Mountain. I know it's a sore spot with some people still. The mall went elsewhere. But from economic reality of how slow Tulsa grows and what we really need to be doing to build our sales tax base, this is one of those things that fits right for that. And just want to say thank you to the George Kaiser Family Foundation for being willing to help step up and help make this happen. And thank you to River Parks for listening to us and taking some suggestions, and thank you to the council for considering our proposal, the River Parks proposal, and the plat proposal, and actually finding a way to get it in the package.
When I first met Colin, his wife came to my office, they brought me a petition, and it was this thick. And I started looking, and I thought, well, really, who cares what people in Australia and England think? But then I thought, if they know about Turkey Mountain and they see it as such a important thing to sign a petition for, maybe they'll come to our city, spend the night, spend the week, bring sales tax dollars in. And I want to thank Colin, but hiding back there in the corner, someone that can really talk about our streets is the director of Streets and Stormwater, is Terry Ball. And Terry, could you come and just say a few words and then...
As Councilor said, I'm the Streets and Stormwater Director. I guess today I'd be more if you have any questions. What this proposal does do is it does add 11 street employees, which is 2 full crews who do permanent patching. It also would add 5 signal in our engineering group that actually do signal timing right now. In our department, we do not have anybody that actually does signal timing right now. And I know a lot of times, a lot of complaints we get when you're driving is, why do these lights, why do I have to stop all the time? The problem is, over the years, cuts have come, positions have had to be cut, and over the years, people that did that, those positions have been eliminated. So one of the things this does is it would add 5 positions, 1 professional engineer and 4 technicians whose whole job would be to be proactive on working on signal timing.
We hired
One other thing that we do have coming with the previous funding packages, we do have a new signal system that's being purchased right now. So between the new signal system that will replace the technology that's pretty much 70s based that's out there right now, those 2 items would help that significantly. The other item we have would be adding 8 positions in repairing, actually doing work on the signals, which is a lot of times right now with the people that we have, it's basically go out when it breaks and we work on it. this would do is allow us some positions that would actually go out and work on those cabinets ahead of time to keep them from breaking, to be more proactive. Because right now, as a department, due to staffing cuts over the year, we're pretty much a reactive group right now. And that was the intent with this package that the councilors and mayor proposed, was trying to get or more of a proactive group, both in the streets and in the traffic engineering side, to try to head off some of the issues that frustrate people day to day when they come out and see a signal down, see a striping that's not there, see some of those potholes that we do, temporary patches because of the lack of people that we have. The temporary patch is what we have to do to keep the road passable. What our intent is, we want to get more into the permanent patches, which are more long-term, so that you don't see that same crew out 2 or 3 months later refilling that same pothole as they were out before. So the intent is to get them out there and actually do permanent patching. And that's our goal. I mean, it's not, we don't purposely want to keep filling the same holes. It doesn't do anybody any good to do that. That's what our intent is with this permanent. So other than that, anybody has any?
I am curious if there is a impact study that is done regarding the implementation of things like building the low water
Yes.
dams.
We should have that out next week. Right now, OU did it, but what we've done to make sure.
Well, I was going to say, if you want, I mean, are you talking economic impacts?
No, I'm
specifically,
talking
or just
about
for,
the
like,
impacts on
environmental or?
neighborhoods, because
Oh,
it is
okay.
clear in our neighborhood that should a dam be built, there will be more traffic, more demand for parking, more noise levels, because suddenly you're creating an attraction. The example we heard earlier was from the gentleman at Turkey Mountain. He said, now we have it and now we can't park there. So fundamentally, what I'm inquiring about is whether there is an intelligent process by which you anticipate traffic.
It's government, of course there's intelligent process.
As I said last week, we basically have 2-lane streets after 101st Street. And I'm in the same neighborhood he is. I told you this last week. A marina at Bensel Creek is ridiculous. Now,
And I think we need to look into that again.
we don't need any more traffic. We don't need traffic at 6:30 or 5:30 on Riverside Drive. Come down there. I don't think Bynum had ever been down there, so he didn't know. But the
You know, I've been down there,
the
Paul.
traffic is difficult. And south of us is the soccer. There's a soccer field, and on Saturdays and Sundays and even at night, the traffic coming up, again, on the 2-lane street, which would be, it becomes Delaware.
Becomes Delaware.
It's extremely difficult. Now, with the lights there, as I said last week, I appreciate that light, because that has helped us
And you
greatly.
know, I've wanted to widen it, we haven't been able to get
I'm
back.
glad that the light's there, but,
But you can read the chapter of the book.
And I will, I mean, I'm not going to promise anybody, and I'm,
A right
but,
for us.
right, but I do
No,
think you guys raised really good points, and it's something that I hope, it's been something I have advocated for really strongly in my district, because I don't know how many of you have been over on Mingo Road, which is one of the most heavily traveled, South Mingo, 2-lane country road, and it's one of the most heavily traveled roads in the city.
Amen.
Yeah, somebody who lives out there. And we've got 3 hospitals, TCC, union schools, and 3,000 apartment units that have gone in under 2-mile stretch there. So it's incredible growth, and we don't have the infrastructure to support it. The thing is, and you always have that balance as a city. I mean, do you build a big road where nothing's there, and then people go around and say, what are you doing this wasting money on roads, or do you have the growth? Hopefully, you're strategic and you're smart, and you try to do them hand in hand, which is what I keep advocating for. Because we need that growth in Tulsa. We need more density. We need more things in this city that produce jobs. We need the things that attract people here who will come spend the sales tax money. You know, we want people from Jenks and Bartlesville and Owasso to come here and spend their dollars in our city to help pay for your police officers and your code enforcement and your traffic lights and those things. So we need that. But we don't want to do it in a way that makes, that hurts the neighborhood. So we can't promise exactly how these are going to be, because you got to do the engineering and design. What I can promise you, and Jeannie and I are both real big advocates, and I think the council as a whole is thinking a lot more this way, is it exactly those kinds of issues. And one thing
that will tie into all of this. There's a really good group. Jeannie's a part of this, and the counselors who are on the river, and the planning folks, and smart people from around the city, that are looking at the entire river. We want to make sure that the development that happens as part of this is thought through for exactly the kinds of reasons you're talking about, to make sure we protect the really valuable, awesome green space we have along the river. And then we also find some opportunities to make some money. So that, but they're going through and doing design and looking for the development opportunities so that it's not just, oh, hey, I got some money, I want to put in a bank here or this there or whatever. So that the whole thing is done, and the citizens have a voice in that and are part of that process of saying, where do we want some cool development where there's a marina, and where do we need to make sure that we buffer neighborhoods or we add additional infrastructure to support it. So, I mean, I don't think any of us know exactly what that'll look like, because it's a big, long process, but I can tell you that there's a much higher sensibility to that, I think, and commitment to that among all of us on the council. And the fact that we've got things now which we didn't think that way. We just say, awesome, build stuff, and then we deal with the problems later. But we've got this group that's really thinking out the river. I think will really help with those kinds of things.
It's called an overlay district.
And Matt, I think Matt wants
Oh,
to say
yeah.
too, so.
Matt?
Yeah, on that South Tulsa dam, if this vision passes, that dam's not gonna be done like the next day. I mean, it's not even permitted or designed or built, so they're gonna, if it passes, it would be done first. So it'll be several years out.
And a lot of, in as with all those things, the neighborhoods around there will participate.
Well, and Paula, I've been out there fighting for that widening of that street anyway, and I hear all the time, they're waiting, the city likes to do match repairs, so they're waiting and hoping that ODOT will come in with the repairs, and they have money to redo the Creek Turnpike. When it was first built, and I even thought that myself, because I remember when it was a 2-lane road going to 51st and Memorial, almost a country road, and I thought, who would ever use the Creek Turnpike? It's used so much now that there's times, and Bob has this issue at 81st where he lives, that we continually watch the traffic at Tulsa Hills grow. But we're hoping that ODOT will come in. We don't want to go in and spend your tax dollars. That Terry could probably explain more, because he used to work for that department, but I know he's kind of out of it. But you go in and you think, well, I'm going to do this section of the road, and then they come in and tear it up because they're redoing the turnpike. So if we can get the turnpike to start part of the widening, or ODOT to come in and do that, that will help us with the mess we have at 101st and at 81st and
Take a look at 101st Street between 7:30 and 8 in the morning. It's backed up to St. Bernard's. From Riverside Drive up to St. Bernard, that's over a mile. It is literally backed up all the way.
I've actually been to Merritt's at that time, so I know.
To the west side.
How are you? But I have these, if not every other month, I try to have one on the, my east side and one on the west side, and everyone's always invited. And if you haven't signed up, as I say, for our newsletters, please let us know your email, because we want to keep you informed of when we have these meetings. Because you're our eyes and ears in our community. I can drive, but things can change in 2 weeks, and a big pothole develop or something happen, and the lighting is not synchronized or not working. And we need to know those. So please never hesitate to call us, but if you want to come out and discuss things, or you have ideas.
I have to give Jeannie kudos though. She's the only one who actually calls on everybody by name. I mean, she knows everybody in everybody in her town hall. No, I think that's awesome. I did want to clarify one thing. I was remembering, Jeannie, you mentioned Vision 2025, and I don't think the original concept is go through 2025. That was like how the city would look in 2025. So I demand that it's like a couple of months or a month and a half or something. Yeah. So, yeah, 2017, the new one will go into place. So, anyway.
It is expiring a little early.
I think.
Yes.
Other
Doug, I might as well call you Bud. Since they think I call all my,
I know it's discussed
Just make up a name. Josh, go ahead, Josh.
Is there a possibility if one or more of the questions fail, that the council could quickly agree to get something back on the ballot?
Yes, but, I mean, there's limitation, obviously, we could always come back. I think the key would be if we get feedback, I mean, if that, I hope that doesn't happen, I expect that it won't. But we will listen to what voters tell us, and if voters come back and we feel, you know, we get a real strong message back that there was this thing or this piece that we wanted or didn't like, we like this.
or you don't want anything.
So, you know, you tell us, it's up to you guys. We're here to answer your questions and tell you why we think this is good for Tulsa, but, I mean, voters will be ones to decide. If voters tell us they want something different, we'll listen.
And if the Jeans Dam is not built, part of the money that Creek Nation is putting in is for this endowment. And as Councilor America said before, in the city, we've never worked with things with endowments. Economic studies, we've really got into this, meeting people weekly to try to make sure this is the right things in this package. Meeting with the Corps. I've been a little bit more involved in the river because in my district, in Councilor America, but we've all been out at numerous meetings for everything, listening to what people want and talking to make sure what we do on the river's right. But if something happens and Jeans doesn't pass their package and we would pass ours, then the Jeans Dam would not be built. That money would be.
We'll call it the South Tulsa Dam. The South Tulsa Dam.
Yeah, South Tulsa. I'm thinking of the Jeans portion of it. Or if the Creek Nation, if something happens with their budget or something over the next year, then that dam will not be built. There will be money taken out for the endowment, because that was the part the Creek Nation was going to pay. But it will go to the Jeans Dam. So we will not build that, and that's where I think we will come out and have public meetings and ask the citizens, we have this extra amount of money, what do you want us to do with this? Now, we have,
education.
Yes.
PPS.
Hey, you vote for this, and you're arguing some money, I mean, it is. And then for the first time ever, so a lot of you know, I'm a former school board member, and I've got 2 kids in public schools. So I'm just a huge believer in that's, as the schools go, the city goes.
So there'll be some legalities in
No,
the city.
No, it's absolutely legal. It's absolutely legal.
but it has to be certain things, does it not, or it has to be
Let's not worry about that.
Yeah, no, we got it, you guys, and I hope everybody saw, if you were so inclined, we got signs here, yard signs that you're welcome to take and clean your neighbor's yard and your